Isn't it lovely speaking in person where you get a round of applause before you've said anything? So thank you for inviting me to the NASUWT Regional Conference. I know it's the Teachers' Union because the apostrophe is in the right place. My eldest son, Leon, he's 16 now, he's just starting his A-levels. And a couple of years ago, he was really into a computer game called Stellaris, where you run an interstellar civilization and you're tasked with exploring, colonizing, managing your region of the galaxy, encountering other empires, trading, fighting, intergalactic treaties, setting social and economic policy, that kind of thing. And he would spend hours on this. And I asked him, Leon, what's your strategy? And he said, if you focus on getting the education of your people right, then after a couple of generations, everything else takes care of itself. Nailed it. A 14-year-old boy nailed it. And you are the custodians of that future. Education's not taken seriously enough. Teachers aren't paid enough. There's not enough professional respect. Schools are in the front line in tackling childhood poverty and mental ill health. And we're witnessing a crisis of recruitment and retention, which is a false economy. In the 1870s, the government brought in free compulsory primary education. Suddenly, a basic education was no longer the preserve of the wealthy or dependent on charities or churches. It was for everyone. Millions of children learned to read and write for the first time. And education is the basis of our modern economy. Well, what did we see in Thursday's budget? Smoke and mirrors. The schools budget will increase from 53.8 billion this year to 58.8 billion by 2025, a rise of 9% over 2 financial years. But inflation is running at 11% a year, so these are real-term cuts. Real-term cuts that will compound the staff crisis in our public services. We saw bankers' bonuses protected though, didn't we? The relief those poor bankers must now feel. Finally being able to afford that second holiday home. It's beyond satire. Britain's workers are underpaid, overworked, and facing burnout. No wonder sickness levels are so high. No wonder the UK is taking industrial action. Strikes are not the weapons of billionaires. Strikes are the weapon of last resort for working people seeing their real wages fall and the safety and sustainability of their profession crumbling before their eyes. You're not alone. The railways, the university and college staff, NHS workers, postal workers, airport check-in staff, telecoms engineers, even criminal barristers, all engaged in industrial action. And the parents support you. 64% say teachers are justified in taking industrial action if they get a below inflation pay rise. Ministers were quick to publish videos of themselves clapping for carers on Thursday nights during lockdown. Now it's time to reward the people who do the work in our country. And there's more to this than simple incompetence. The government's policy making is based on an exam system designed for the wrong purpose. Many educators now refer to the tyranny of testing, a culture of relentless exams, spurious league tables, and artificial competition between schools. Schools pressured to become exam factories. The typical English child undergoes more than 70 tests in a school career, way more than the rest of the advanced economies. And when I ask employers, how do they choose one young person over another? The answers are always the same. A young person who can make eye contact in an interview, who comes across as confident, who demonstrates independent thought. So why worry about exams at all? Well, the medieval Chinese civil service had reduced them to separate nepotism from competence. The British Empire needed a cohort of educated chaps to administer an empire from Canada to India. Standardized handwriting and quick mental arithmetic were essential, and it even allowed for a degree of social mobility as long as you knew the LBW rule. And standardized testing then is not a form of education, it's a form of selection. So we can rank young people and say who is more worthy of advancement. Is it really that far from Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where alphas have a different life trajectory from deltas. Exams do have a benefit when they're diagnostic, of course. They're a fast and efficient way of telling a teacher what the gaps are in a student's knowledge. Like any diagnosis, though, it must be followed up with treatment. Evidence has shown that exams at the start of the course produce much better educational outcomes than testing at the end, because by then it's too late to do anything about it. Education should focus on raising ability, not ranking kids and schools against each other. Competitive education, this is the point. How many jobs in the workplace are competitive? Sharing your work with colleagues is good practice. What use is a footballer who can't pass to teammates? Researcher John Happy did a massive study in the different educational policies, and the policy that the most difference to educational outcomes, you know what it was? Supporting teachers to work together collaboratively. That should not be a surprise. It won't be a surprise to you. Skilled professionals working together is the bedrock of all progress. And that's the foundation of the North of Tyne School Improvement Strategy. So for Angela's benefit, I'm one of those metro mayors. You may have heard of such people as Ken Livingstone and Boris Johnson in London, Andy Burnham in Manchester, Sadiq Khan there. Well, I'm about equivalent from Newcastle, North Tyneside, and Northumberland, all the way up to Berwick. And when I was elected 3 and a bit years ago, it was a brand new combined authority. There were no staff. Well, it's not strictly true, there were 3 staff. When I walked in on the first day, it was about 20 camera crew. We were outnumbered. And so we had to build this from the start. Now, one of the things that government had offered in that devolution deal was an education challenge. And when I got there, I found it was undercooked, it didn't exist. I spoke to all the unions and got you into advice, but Gavin Williamson, who was the then Education Secretary of State, a good friend of many of you, I'm sure, wouldn't even talk to us. But I was unwilling to drop it, so we focused instead on school improvement. And there is a small p political challenge given the fragmentation of school education. The detail of this work is vast, but we're pleased to say that we've supported over 100 schools to access early literacy support. We've helped build a strong network of head teachers and school leaders across our 3 authorities through an innovative Linking Leaders programme. And we're about to announce a funded mental health award which will support 300 of our schools in the North of Tyne, pretty much all of them, by providing training and accreditation as well as building a forum to share best practice. And when we get to the Q&A, I'd like to hear from you about what you think is needed. Your direct experience of classroom teaching is essential for developing good policy. That's how we do everything in the North of Tyne. I'm not an expert in education, you are. I'm good at public administration, I'll tell you a bit about that later. But I can only be as good as the people I'm talking to. We know education doesn't take place in a vacuum. Schools aren't insulated from what's going on elsewhere. We live in a dangerous world where poverty is on the increase, racism and bigotry is incited by leading politicians, where the climate emergency is going unchecked, and where we are in a proxy war. We can't solve every problem or cure every ill, but we can make a difference. 38% of the North East's children live in poverty, which is not something we can ignore. How can you teach hungry kids? How can they get their homework done when they're living in a cold, damp house? I don't know, but that's why our child poverty prevention programme is focused on 3 places: the kids' classrooms, the school gates, and the parents' place of work. In the classroom, we're working with 90 schools this year. Schools choose what to focus on, whether it's poverty-proofing school uniform policy, providing free after-school clubs, which we fund, or helping families with cooking and finances. Over 2,500 children and families have benefited from this already. And from the school gates, well, we're running a pilot that supports families in poverty by bringing welfare rights advice into the familiar safe setting of a school. Universal credit is incredibly complicated and people are missing out. That ability to get that money makes a difference to families. We know teachers have tight, trusting relationships with parents, often provide them with guidance about issues unrelated to school and education. And struggling parents can receive the advice and referrals to further help before they've left the school gate. And finally, we're working with employers. The sad truth is that work is not always a route out of poverty. Nearly 3 in 4 kids in poverty are from working families. And with our partner, the Social Enterprise Society Matters, we're supporting businesses across the region to develop an anti-poverty strategy by autumn 2023, helping 2,000 parents. We're supporting childhood recovery from learning lost in the years of the pandemic and the lockdowns. Schools are in the driving seat. Teachers get to choose what we fund. Some are focusing on oracy, where English is a second language for many people. Some are focusing on forest skills and outdoor learning. We're helping schools see best practice on blended learning from around the world. And understandably, a lot of online learning was introduced in a rush when we went into lockdown, and not everybody's had the chance to get this right yet. And we're offering all 367 schools in the North of Tyne a chance to undertake our mental health award, because we want better mental health and well-being for the whole school community. It's teachers, staff, everybody. Last year, we piloted an innovative Mayor's School Climate Challenge. We worked with Newcastle University to inspire primary school pupils to become citizen scientists, testing the pH of soil, learning about how many gallons of water it takes to make a t-shirt. With the headline support of Bring It On, an engineering challenge, an exhibition connecting secondary schools with real-world businesses to address climate challenges through engineering. And we work with colleges and sixth form students to develop, alongside the professional courses at Newcastle University and the games industry, to develop fully playable games to raise awareness of the climate challenge. And we'll be running that project again after Christmas this year, making it even bigger. Launchpad for Literacy is another existing initiative that we've funded, so more schools across the North of Tyne can benefit. It's an early literacy program that provides a supportive approach to speech, language and communication development. And it incorporates specific skills children need for literacy readiness, which will allow them to transition from spoken to written communication. As an elected Metro Mayor, I'm accountable to you, the elected, and my word is important to me. I said I put the trade unions at the heart of everything we do, and that's what we're doing. And too often, Labour politicians shy away from supporting unions. Not me. Not me. I've stood on picket lines with workers from the UCU and the NEU. I've spoken directly with employers to open the way for trade union organisers. I've supported campaigns from Unite, Unison, GMB, the CWU, the RMT, ASLEF, TSSA, NEU, NASUWT, AUE, and the NUJ, National Union of Journalists. Now that was an interesting one. Talking to journalists on the picket line, the ones who write stories about me being a left-wing mayor all the time. One of them said, Jamie, I think you were right all along. And there's a standing offer to help any of you whenever you need me. I mean, just like I stood with the NEU teachers from Newcastle High School for Girls, when they went on strike because their pensions were under threat from their employer, the Girls' Day School Trust. They won that fight. I got an interesting letter from the chief exec trying to explain their position. And I wrote back saying, yeah, why are you telling me you should be negotiating with the union? And that right to stay in the teacher's pension scheme was won. The threat of fire and rehire was seen off. Or when members from your union at Bedlington Academy in Northumberland went on strike over excessive workloads, the employee came back to the table within a week and the union got a good deal. Now, I know that taking industrial action is a last resort. No one wants to take that step if they can avoid it. But I also know that part of being a trade union is about so much more. That's why, when the Tories put the Union Learn project, I stepped in and funded it. So it's stronger than it was before. With £430,000 for the Northern TUC to help low-paid workers get learning opportunities so they can earn better wages. And it's now better funded than it was before. And while we're on, we've directly worked with the NEU, the NASUWT and Unison to establish a Teachers Cooperative Supply Agency, so teachers and teaching assistants get a fair deal, including better pay and continuous professional development and pensions. I made a mayoral manifesto commitment to support employee-owned businesses and cooperatives. The teaching unions approached me with their concerns about supply arrangements. Forgotten, invisible, second-class citizens, treated like extras in a film. They're some of the comments from NASUWT supply teacher members when asked to describe their experiences over the year before this. So I funded a feasibility study to explore the viability of the supply teachers cooperative. That cooperative now exists, called Educo. Teachers are in the driving seat of it, and it'll start trading in the next calendar year. And I've got a £4 million fund ready to capitalise projects like this as soon as they're ready to begin trading, subject to due diligence, of course. Legally, it has to be based in the North of Tyne for me to fund it, but it can trade and support teachers and TAs across the whole country. No other metro mayor in the country is doing as much to support the education system as I am. In fact, Greater Manchester got in touch with us to ask us about our approach. Education is not devolved. It's just something so important, decided that we have to support. Now, I've only talked about what we've done with education, so I'll whiz very quickly through everything else we do. On the climate emergency, I've set up a Citizens' Assembly on Climate Change, which reported back we're delivering what they asked. On onshore wind and offshore wind in particular, on the climate emergency, we have a skills hub that we've funded at Blythe. We are investing directly with small and medium businesses to create jobs and decarbonise the economy. Our own office is got 370 tonnes a year less than other offices, and we've planted the trees to get us towards zero carbon emissions. I've funded a crowdfunder program, so communities, and if you want to, please do it through your schools if you're in the North of Tyne, where they come up with an idea, and if people support it, social media comments, small donations, we'll put in a large amount of money. And this is rewilded back lanes. We've got projects where there's beach wheelchairs at colour codes. We've got garden swaps where people are digging things into people's gardens and selling the produce, sharing the produce. We've got a whole range of things like kids, for example, doing biodiversity studies on the North Tyne. And Swan Hunters shipyard has been cleared. In discussions to get a company to move in there, creating wind turbines. And I'm really looking forward to the day we have engineers back on the Swan Hunters site working. That'll be iconic for the North East. We got the adult education budget devolved from central government, and we're running it way better. In the academic year just gone, we had 33,000 enrolments on a course we funded. That's 12,000 more than the previous year. 45% of them came from people living in our most deprived wards. 70% were unemployed. 57% were women. 57% had low or no qualifications. 45% were from non-white communities. And 20% were from people with a learning disability or a disability. So that we're making sure that the people who need the most help are getting the most help. And they're real people, not just statistics. People like the guy called Jimmy, who'd been unemployed for 10 years. And you know, once you're out of the job market, it's hard to get back in. Unemployment is a barrier to employment. It's like catch-22. Given a choice between someone who's in work or long-term unemployed, you know what decision an employee is going to make. So Jimmy got involved with the Cedarwood Trust, that's in Meadowell, somewhere we fund, and completed a bunch of courses with them. In this year, in June earlier this year, he got a job in catering, his first job for a decade. Changed his life, and he's got money in his pocket. That is what makes a difference to people's lives. I've negotiated with big firms to bring it to the North East. Verisure, Monster Labs, ThoughtWorks, Credera, Version 1. 11 big tech firms, some of these with average salaries of 54,000. But I don't want to leave IT professionals stay away. We work with local firms to help them innovate and create new jobs. We support community interest companies. We were the #1 region in the country last year for inward investment across the entire country. I've got one major target from government, that's to create 10,000 jobs over 30 years. And that's not smoke and mirrors. These are real jobs, not the usual pie in the sky figures you may hear from some politicians. To count, a job has to be full-time equivalent, held by a real person for over a year, and a direct result of our investment. So multiplies and supply chain and knock-on jobs, none of those count, only the real jobs. So by now, 3 and a bit years in, I should have 1,200 jobs being created. Actually, 4,685. That's 14 years progress in 3.5 years, despite the pandemic. For every pound I spend, I return over £3 to Treasury in payroll taxes alone. So if anybody ever tells you that socialists don't know how to run an economy, you send them to me. I've negotiated a £3 billion deal for a wider northeast evolution. That includes getting the transport system developed. Because young people in particular, they can't get somewhere on a bus. That ruins their life chances. There are some political wrinkles need ironing out, but that's ready to go. The funding's all been agreed and signed off. The essence of childhood should be joy. Education should be about discovery. But for many kids, probably most, exams are a source of stress. Those who've not got the grades they hope for every year will be coping with the disappointment, or some worse still, actually not coping. And what would an anthropologist from another planet make of our education system, I wonder? 12 years at school, it's boiled down to a set of numbers from 9 to 1. Or A star to E in our money, which I'll explain in a minute. Grades get analysed, published in league tables, statistical comparisons made in press articles. Why do you have this obsession with individually ranking children? Our elder would ask us. Why don't you measure whether the kids are healthy or happy? Even if you believe the sole objective of public education is to prepare kids to be efficient work units, you should measure the really important things, like whether they can collaborate and work well in a team, or be self-directed. And most bizarrely, in all the discussions about education, policymakers never talk to the children. Childhood is not a preparation for life. It is your life. Sacrificing the joy of childhood for some promised economic future is self-defeating. When I was at school, my generation was told a story that if you worked hard and you did well at school, you'd get a job and a house and you'd be better off than your parents. And if you had a degree, you'd have a good career. Kids today don't believe it, and they're not wrong. You're better off with a degree, but it's no guarantee of a job, or that you'll be able to pay your rent or your energy bills, or save up to buy a home. You could be paying back your education until well after you've got kids of your own. Public education is a political football, league tables, and changes to the curriculum, back to basics, and people saying, in my day we learned for 3 hours. Or, as Michael Gove insisted, we can't have kids learning foreign authors like John Steinbeck. Yet oddly, the Greek and Roman classics were okay. I quite like both, actually. What never gets examined is the actual basics of education, the relationship between the teacher and the learner. Teaching is not a delivery system. There never will be some perfect formula of knowledge to be downloaded into young minds. Children have a vast appetite for learning. We don't need to teach kids to speak or to use mobile phones, they pick it up. Children, like adults, learn from observation and imitating others more than they do from following instructions. And the most important skill anyone can master is how to form productive relationships with other people. That hasn't changed since humans were hunter-gatherers, and it's not going to change in the future. And every child has feelings, motivations, and interests, and aspirations, ambitions, and passions. And the proper role of politicians in education is not to dictate, or legislate, or direct. It's to empower education professionals to have better teaching and learning relationships with their students. And to get this shift in education, and the willingness to fund it properly, requires winning the argument and telling the little Englanders a harsh truth. The world they pined for is gone. It's not coming back. And we have to break the mindset that education is about spending public money, when it's really about investing in our collective future. If they're lucky, a child leaving school this year will retire in 2074. How do we educate our children to take their place in that future, given that we don't know what will happen with our economy next year? We must break the production line metaphor of education. Our kids will need independence, self-awareness, and interpersonal skills to solve the problems we've left them. And what better way to foster that than to keep the joy in learning and to keep the joy in teaching? Thank you.